Data minimization, principle number three, is one of the sometimes more challenging areas. And we've seen very, very significant data breaches resulting because people have not followed this principle. So, principle three says collect and retain only the minimum amount of personal data necessary for the intended purpose. So, this is all about reducing the risk of harm to an individual. Here in Australia, we had a data breach through a private health fund. Now, the reasons for the breach are pretty well documented, but the piece I want to focus on is the size of the breach. It's over 9 million records, and a significant portion of that data was customers of this health insurance who were no longer customers, former customers, and in some cases for many years past, which meant that that information should have been deleted from the system that was breached because it was no longer necessary, or at the very least de-identified. So the size of the breach was so large because this organization was not compliant with the regulations, and particularly the regulations that spoke about data minimization. So this is a critical element of a data architecture, is to understand, oh, we know we're using this information for a purpose. When does it no longer become necessary? And that could be because it's out of date, because it's inaccurate, or because the purpose for which it was collected is no longer relevant, for that record, for example. And making sure that once we have that criteria understood, we are building in processes to make sure that we can dispose of that information. That could be to delete the information or to de-identify the information. I mentioned de-identification just previously, and the reason why that is because a lot of the regulations now specifically state that the Privacy Act deals with personal information and excludes de-identified information, meaning that once you have de-identified it, then what remains is no longer covered under that privacy regulation. This is a far better way and easier way to comply with these laws because, as we all know, deleting data is easier said than done. So explore de-identification. There are guidelines and rules around, obviously, how that is done to make sure it can't be re-identified, for example. But data minimization is a very critical area. So again, the questions I encourage you to ask is, well, how is this info going to be used? When is it no longer necessary? And what is the method of disposal? And then we can build those processes into our solutions from day one, because many organizations are now having to spend quite significant amounts of time and money going through all of their systems, identifying unnecessary data, and then having to delete it, because this is where a lot of the regulatory agencies are seeking to enforce compliance, making sure organizations are not holding on to personal information longer than they need to. So that's principle number three, data minimization.